March 18th brings a noticeable shift in tone. After several days of repeated conversations, emotional insights, and gradually forming clarity, the energy now becomes more grounded and serious. The Sun aligns with Saturn, and when this happens, awareness tends to move toward reality, responsibility, and structure. Over the past few days, you may have recognized something important. A conversation may have revealed a truth. A pattern may have become visible. A situation that once felt confusing may now feel more defined. That clarity was necessary. Today asks what you will do with it. Saturn represents limits, responsibility, and the structures that support long-term stability. When it aligns with the Sun, which represents conscious awareness, it creates a moment where reality becomes difficult to ignore. You may feel a stronger sense of seriousness today. Something that once felt flexible may now feel fixed. A situation that allowed uncertainty may now require a decision or a clear response. This does not necessarily mean pressure from the outside. Often it appears as an internal recognition that something needs to be handled in a more mature or responsible way. In Pisces, this process carries an emotional layer. You may feel the weight of understanding, not just intellectually, but emotionally. A realization from earlier in the week may now feel more real because you are beginning to see what it requires from you. This can feel grounding, but it can also feel heavy if you are not expecting it. Saturn does not remove possibilities. It clarifies which possibilities are realistic and which require effort to become real. It asks whether your current direction is supported by actions that can sustain it over time. The key dynamic of today is acceptance. Not just understanding what is true, but recognizing what that truth asks of you. Because once clarity meets reality, the next step is no longer about discovery. It becomes about responsibility. To understand the deeper atmosphere of March 18, we need to look at the nature of Saturn and why its alignment with the Sun often feels like a moment of gravity. The Sun represents awareness, identity, and the sense of self that organizes how we experience life. It reflects how we see ourselves and how we bring that identity into the world through our actions and decisions. Saturn represents something very different. Saturn is associated with structure, responsibility, time, and limitation. It governs the frameworks that support long-term stability. While other planetary influences may encourage exploration or expansion, Saturn asks whether something can endure. It focuses on what is sustainable rather than what is immediately appealing. When the Sun aligns with Saturn, awareness meets reality. Psychologically, this can feel like a moment where illusions fall away. Not necessarily in a dramatic sense, but in a quiet recognition that certain things are exactly as they are. The mind stops searching for alternative interpretations and begins accepting what is actually present. This is why Sun-Saturn alignments often feel serious. They bring attention to responsibility. They highlight where effort is required. They reveal the difference between what we wish could happen and what can realistically be built through consistent action. In Pisces, this process becomes more subtle but no less significant. Pisces is connected to imagination, emotional depth, and the ability to perceive meaning beyond surface-level reality. It can blur boundaries and create space for possibilities that are not yet fully formed. When Saturn moves through Pisces, it begins shaping those possibilities into something more defined. This can feel like the grounding of a dream. You may recognize that something you have been imagining or hoping for now requires structure to exist in a real and sustainable way. Alternatively, you may realize that certain expectations were not supported by the reality of the situation. This is not meant to discourage. Saturn's role is not to remove meaning, but to give it form. It asks whether what you are building aligns with your values strongly enough to support the effort required to sustain it. Another important psychological effect of this alignment is the awareness of time. You may find yourself thinking about long-term consequences rather than immediate outcomes. Decisions may feel more significant because you recognize how they will influence the future. This can create a sense of weight, but it can also create clarity. When awareness includes both the present moment and its future impact, choices become more intentional. The deeper lesson of this transit is integration of truth with responsibility. Understanding something is only the first step. Saturn asks whether you are willing to act in alignment with that understanding over time. Because real growth is not measured by what we realize in a moment. It is measured by what we consistently build from that realization.
On a practical level, March 18 may feel quieter but heavier in a way that is more internal than external. You might notice that your thoughts are more focused today. Instead of jumping between different ideas or possibilities, your attention may settle on a few specific areas of your life that feel important. These are often the areas where responsibility or long-term direction is becoming more clear. You may also feel less interested in distraction. Things that usually help you avoid thinking too deeply may not feel as engaging. The mind may naturally return to what feels real, what needs to be handled, or what requires a more serious approach. This is not negativity, it is concentration. Another pattern that may appear today is a stronger awareness of limits. You might recognize where your time, energy, or emotional capacity has boundaries. A situation that once felt manageable may now appear unsustainable if it requires more than you can realistically give. This awareness can feel restrictive at first, but it is also clarifying. Limits help define what is possible in a stable way. You may also notice a desire to organize or structure something in your life. This could be related to work, routines, relationships, or personal goals. When Saturn is active, the mind often looks for ways to create order because structure provides a sense of stability. At the same time, emotional responses may feel more contained. You may not feel the urge to express everything immediately. Instead, you might prefer to think things through before speaking. Conversations may feel more deliberate, with a focus on what is practical rather than what is purely emotional. This can create a sense of distance, but it can also improve clarity. Another common experience today is the recognition of responsibility within relationships. You may begin to notice what a connection actually requires to continue in a healthy way. This might involve effort, consistency, or honest communication. The emotional tone may feel less about excitement and more about what can realistically be maintained over time. The key approach today is steady awareness. Instead of trying to change everything at once, focus on understanding what feels stable and what does not. Notice where effort is needed and where adjustment may be required. This is not a day for quick decisions. It is a day for recognizing what kind of structure your life needs in order to support the direction you are moving toward. Now bring this grounding energy into your own experience, sign by sign. This is not about prediction, but about how each sign can work with the clarity and responsibility emerging today. If you're an Aries, today may ask you to slow down and take responsibility for something you recently set in motion. A situation may require patience and follow-through rather than immediate action. Growth comes from sustaining what you start. If you're a Taurus, emotional or financial stability may come into focus. You might recognize what truly supports your long-term security. Growth lies in committing to what is reliable rather than what is temporarily comfortable. If you're a Gemini, this influence may feel more internal. You may be reflecting on your identity, direction, or personal responsibilities. Growth comes from accepting what you know to be true about your current situation. If you're a Cancer, friendships or long-term goals may feel more serious today. You might evaluate which connections genuinely support your growth. Growth lies in investing energy where it is reciprocated. If you're a Leo, professional direction or public responsibilities may feel more defined. You may recognize what is required to move forward in a meaningful way. Growth comes from aligning ambition with consistent effort. If you're a Virgo, belief systems or long-term perspectives may be grounding into something more practical. You might reconsider how your ideals can be applied in real life. Growth lies in turning vision into structure.
If you're a Libra, deeper emotional or shared responsibilities may become more visible. A situation involving trust or commitment may require clarity. Growth comes from acknowledging what is realistically sustainable. If you're a Scorpio, relationships may reflect a need for balance between emotional connection and responsibility. You may see what a partnership truly requires to remain stable. Growth lies in embracing honesty within connection. If you're a Sagittarius, daily routines or work habits may come into focus. You might recognize how small actions influence long-term outcomes. Growth comes from building consistency in your efforts. If you're a Capricorn, creativity or personal expression may require structure. You may realize that inspiration alone is not enough without commitment. Growth lies in giving your ideas a practical form. And if you're an Aquarius, home, family, or personal foundations may feel more serious today. You may recognize what needs to be stabilized in your private life. Growth comes from creating a secure base for your future. And if you're a Pisces, communication and personal perspective may become more grounded. You might realize how your thoughts shape your reality. Growth lies in expressing yourself with clarity and responsibility.
As we close March 18, notice how the tone of the past few days may have shifted. Earlier in the week, much of the energy was focused on understanding. Conversations repeated themselves. Insights appeared gradually. Truths revealed themselves through patterns rather than immediate clarity. Today feels different. Now that something has become clear, the question is no longer about what is happening. It is about what that understanding requires from you. This is where many people feel the weight of Saturn, not because something is wrong, but because reality becomes visible in a way that cannot be easily reinterpreted. A situation may now feel defined. A responsibility may feel more real. A decision may no longer feel optional. This can feel heavy at first, but there is also strength in this kind of clarity. When you understand what is real, you gain the ability to build something stable from it. You no longer need to question the same uncertainty repeatedly. Instead, you can begin working with what is actually present. Tonight, you might reflect quietly. What truth from the past few days feels undeniable now? What responsibility comes with that truth? And what kind of structure would support the direction I want to move toward? These questions are not meant to create pressure. They are meant to bring alignment. Because once clarity becomes grounded in reality, growth is no longer about searching for answers. It becomes about building something meaningful from the understanding you already have.